Today we will be talking about geothermal energy. So, a bit of background on geothermal energy. It's used for both heating and cooling as well as to generate electricity. However, this generation has to be done at higher medium temperatures to be able to take full advantage of the boiling point of water. Because of this, a bit of a downside is that it can really only happen at different tectonically active points in the world. However, on the upside, it's not dependent on weather conditions, unlike solar energy, which can only happen during the day, and wind energy, which can only happen during points of high wind. It's very steady. Geothermal energy has been widely used for a long time as in district heating around cities, as well as geothermal heat pumps to heat homes and different places of work. It's very mature, it has been used for centuries. However, since 1904, it has been used to generate electricity in various ways that we will be discussing later in this presentation.
The source of energy for geothermal power comes from the Earth itself. When the Earth was formed, a lot of meteors were attracted to each other and they were colliding. And those collisions created a lot of heat, which accounts for 10% of the heat within the Earth. And the other 90% of the heat within the Earth comes from radioactive decay of unstable elements over time. And all that heat is energy that can be harnessed as it seeps out from the core of the Earth. The first type of power plant we're going to talk about is the dry steam power plant. This is the oldest form of geothermal energy and was originally created in Italy in 1904. It uses steam directly from a fissure to turn a turbine, which turns a generator, creating power. The only con to these dry steam power plants is that they're very dependent on location. So other types of power plants can use any sort of geothermal energy in tectonically active areas, whereas a dry steam power plant has to use steam coming out of a geyser, for example. The largest single geothermal power producing location is using dry steam power plants and is the geysers in Northern California. The second type of power plant is the flash steam power plant. This is the most common. It uses geothermally heated high pressure water that has temperatures of above 360 degrees Fahrenheit. The pressurized water is pumped into a flash tank, which is a tank holding water that's at a lower pressure and a lower temperature. And when these two waters mix, it causes the water to become vaporized. The steam then goes through a turbine which drives a generator, creating energy. This requires a hot source compared to some of the alternatives, like binary.
One of the ways geothermal energy is moving in the future is through the binary power plant. The nice thing about binary power plants is that it can use a more medium temperature water, where there are many more locations around the world that have this type of water. Basically, the way this works is that the medium temperature water is pumped to the surface where it goes into a heat exchanger. The thermal energy from the water is then transferred to a working fluid with a significantly lower boiling point than water. That working fluid is then the one that goes into the turbine, turning the turbine, which powers a generator, thereby creating the power that we use in our day-to-day lives. One of the areas that geothermal energy is moving in this future is through enhanced geothermal systems. In these kinds of systems, a geothermal reservoir is chosen where there's a hot location but there's not very much natural permeability or fluid. Here, water is injected into those areas at necessary pressure to reopen fissures and fractures in the earth. This is continued until there are enough fractures to create an actual reservoir. At this time, a production well is then drilled into that new fracture network, where water is pumped through, heated to the necessary temperature, and then pumped back up to be used within a binary power plant. Recent studies have actually shown that through creating these reservoirs deeper into the earth, temperatures greater than 400 degrees Celsius can be utilized. These higher temperature waters can then actually open up more opportunities to be used within flash power plants or dry steam power plants, opening up more opportunities for geothermal systems.
The countries that have the most significant share of energy production due to geothermal power are Iceland, El Salvador, New Zealand, Kenya, and the Philippines. The United States creates more than 3.5 gigawatts of geothermal power, which is the largest number by any country. And this is mainly due to California and the huge amount of tectonic activity in the state. In Iceland, geothermal energy accounts for 90% of the heating demands which is a huge positive to geothermal power.